Hi, my name is Owl. I made a game called Loki's Revenge. Today, I want to talk about how much money the game made on Steam and what the experience of making it was like. If you're not familiar with the game, it is a Norse-themed Survivors-like. It's basically vampire survivors, but you play as Norse gods. You're fighting against Loki's army of monsters to prevent Ragnarok. It took me a year and a half working on the game part-time to get to the early access launch. Part-time meaning I spent an hour or two a day before working my full-time job. Sometimes I squeezed in more time on weekends or during the week, but 1 to 2 hours a day average. I used asset packs for 90% or more of the art, as well as all of the sound effects and music. Some assets I made myself, but otherwise they were all from those paid or Creative Commons asset packs. Otherwise, all the code, pretty much all the code, was myself, and I worked on the game directly by myself. The demo version of the game released in October 2024. I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but it was a very different version of the game. It was a lot slower, it had manual shooting. Some YouTubers covered it, and some people on the Steam forums talked about it and gave me some feedback, and it shaped the game pretty differently. It's a lot faster now. It's automatic shooting, very different. And I ended up finishing the early access version of the game and launched that on June 23rd, 2025. So these are the Steam numbers as of today. I've got $758 in gross revenue. And then after you take out returns, chargebacks, taxes, I'm left with $659. That is on 393 copies sold on Steam. 19 copies were returned, so it's a little under 5% return rate, which is pretty good. Median playtime is pretty low, 52 minutes. It is not high enough. That's pretty indicative that there's a problem. And then wish list currently outstanding at 1,331. So if I was trying to live off of this, I'd probably be dead. I could not quit my job and live off of the income of this game, but it is definitely better than I expected as a first game from an unknown developer made in my spare time. So decent foundation to start with and hopefully grow from. Some context leading up to launch. Here's what the wishlist looked like. So I had 972 wishlists as of launch day. That wishlist count includes the second biggest spike on launch day of wishlists gained. So it was like 800 something before launch day. Biggest spike for sure was Next Fest, which got me 464 wishlists, and then the third biggest was the demo release, which in the first 2 days got 87 wishlists. This was not enough to enter popular upcoming or any of those charts. So definitely some warning signs on how the game was going to perform from this. I think one of the earliest warning signs and mistakes that you can see in this graph is the demo release. So, like I said before, the demo was pretty different from the final version of the game. It was a lot slower. There was manual shooting, not as much content, and it didn't get great feedback. Some people liked it, but a lot of the feedback was basically like, get rid of manual shooting, make it more like every other Survivors game, make it automatic, make it faster, all of that. So I wish that I had got more playtesters, either from putting it on itch or using Steam's playtest feature or people that I know, and gotten that feedback much earlier and much clearer so that I could have put out a much better version of the game as the Steam demo. I think I learned that the demos on Steam, that release is so impactful and can generate so much momentum for your game that the demo really has to be like, here's a cut down version of the full game, not like an earlier playtest type of build, because it does impact your performance of the game long term. First week of launch, the game sold 193 copies. That was at a launch price of $1.99 with a 10% discount, so it was like $1.79. Steam automatically localized pricing, so the $1.99 is USD, and then whatever it did for every other territory. I didn't mess with that. I ended up with $363 in gross revenue from that. So you can definitely see like launch day was the best performing day, and then it just kind of fizzles out after that. I don't think this was enough clearly to have any sort of serious momentum. This is a pretty clear sign to me that this game is just not going to do that well. Reception though was positive for what I did get. So the game currently is sitting at a positive rating with 11 reviews. I think there's one negative review that's in there. To be like very positive or overwhelmingly positive, I need to have just a lot more reviews on the game. And even though the sales numbers weren't great, it was definitely rewarding to see some of the comments from people and like talk to people on the Steam forums who were playing the game and enjoying it. There's a couple of people in particular who reported a bug, and then I thanked them and asked for more details, and then they told me that them and two of their friends were playing through the game, and they like 100% of the game on launch day because they were just having so much fun with it. And that, regardless of all the sales, was like the thing that stuck with me the most and made me the most happy to have made the game and done this, and it makes me want to keep doing it in the future. The 10 reviews mark, people talk about that being like a very important milestone and to try to hit that as early as possible. And it really was, because I hit 10 reviews like days or maybe even weeks after launch of the game. And I saw like a super clear uptick in views and visits to the store page and like wish lists and some sales even when that happened, because Steam, when you hit 10 reviews, starts putting you into the discovery queue, and a ton of people use that and see games in there. So it got me a ton of organic traffic that way, and I really wish I was able to get 10 reviews on launch day. Mini lesson to stick in here: you really need to like have something so good that people want to go leave the review and support you. So I had plenty of friends who supported me and bought the game even, but just didn't leave a review. And it's really difficult to convince people to just like sit down and take the 30 seconds to write their thoughts in the Steam review. Is as impactful as it is. And even when friends of mine are also game developers and understand this, or could very easily understand it, even if they didn't literally know, it was super difficult to convince anyone to do that. And it really makes a difference. So I guess mini lesson: if you have a game you're working on, you need to secure those reviews super early. And if someone or like, or some random game you find you like ships, leave a review, because it genuinely makes a huge difference. The other thing I learned from this reception is that while people who bought the game seem to like it based on the positive reviews, I think a lot of people see the game and just get turned off for some reason, and don't want to play it, don't wishlist it, don't buy it, don't care. I don't know if that's because when people look at it, it is like, oh, here's another early access pixel art Vampire Survivors clone, I'm all set. Maybe people are like skipping over it because of that. Maybe that's why some people are wishlisting, because it's in early access and they want to wait until 1.0 and see what happens with it. But either way, pretty clear sign that something or some things about this game are just not connecting with people, and people don't want to play it. P&L wise, I've lost close to $1,000, $805.59 to be exact, as a solo dev. Like if I count all of this, all of my costs, all of the income from Loki's Revenge as like one business, this is where I'm at. If I get rid of any of the costs that are not strictly related to the game, then I'm still at a net loss of like $500 to $600. The other couple hundred are costs for like other upcoming things and like assets for other games and that sort of stuff. Um, I will definitely need to rely on long-term sales of the game to hopefully flip this over to positive and actually making an income. I may, by the end of the year, based on how Steam sales go, be able to flip it into positive just for the year, but overall it's going to take a while, and I will need to see how updates to the game do, getting to 1.0, how that does, and releasing other games for sure. Some takeaways to leave you with at the end here: Loki's Revenge came about because I was reading an article by Chris Zukowski of howtomarketagame.com around the time when I was trying to think of what to work on as like a first solo indie game. And the article was about fast follow survivors like games that had come out. He was looking at Brotato and 20 Minutes Till Dawn and talking about how those developers were working on different bigger games and ended up pivoting to do a fast follow survivors like because Vampire Survivors became really popular and they thought, oh, I could make something like that. Why don't I take a break from my main project and make something like that in a month or two and then release it? And then they became overnight millionaires by doing that. So I decided, maybe I should do the same thing. Maybe I should do a survivors like game because I like roguelikes and it seems super achievable for someone at my skill set and working by myself. But the problem was that it took me a year and a half to make the game instead of a month or two. And, classic case of thinking something will take you a lot less time than it actually does. But in my case, I think that really the big problem was that I was working part time by myself. So even with using asset packs and to save a ton of time on the art and the music and the sound effects, it just took way too long to get the game finished. Part of that was working on a game by myself for the first time and shipping it in a new engine, Godot, which I hadn't worked in before, and it had been a while since I'd been directly like coding and working on a game. But if I had been doing this full time, I think I would have actually finished the game within a couple of months and had it in a much better state. But I spread out full time 1 to 2 months or whatever of work over a year and a half because I could only do an hour or two a day from working a full time job. I think the game also would have needed to visually stand out a lot more from other games because by the time that the game came out, I was competing with so many other survivors likes, especially from bigger studios like Deep Rock Galactic, that just had way more polish and much bigger teams working on them. And I just couldn't compete with that as a solo dev where I wasn't really doing anything super different from Vampire Survivors and like Halls of Torment and a lot of other games that came out in the genre. I think a recent example is Megabonk. That did super well because it's 3D. Like it's just Vampire Survivors, but 3D, and you have some 3D platforming mechanics, and that is a different enough thing to make people want to play it because really no other game in the Survivors like genre has done that yet. So I think you have to stand out visually and maybe mechanically in order to do well in a crowded space like Survivors likes it. And really any game, but Survivors likes in particular, I think it needs to look really different in order to do well at this point. If you are in a similar boat and you want to make games part time, I think it's a good risk management decision, but I think you need to be really disciplined and you need to be really realistic about what that means. I think being consistent, working on a couple hours a day, and working on as small of a scoped game as I did is the only reason I was able to actually ship it ultimately in early access. And if I was not using asset packs to cut down a lot of the time, I would still be working on the demo version of the game right now. Ultimately, you need to really enjoy this. It's kind of cliche advice, but like you have to actually enjoy the process of making games in order to be dumb enough to do this. And I focused a lot on the financials based on the topic of the video, but working on the game, that process is so enjoyable for me that I look forward to working on other games in the future, even if the financial success isn't really there. I care about it. It affects me. I would like the games that I work on to do well so that I can work on them more and do it full time and not have to scrounge an hour or two a day. But you have to really enjoy the process in order to stick with this long term in order to potentially have a successful game. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching, and go play Loki's Revenge on Steam, and let me know what you think.